In a warm, cozy corner, in a house full of cheer, sat an old leather chair worn through many a year. Its cushions were tired, though once soft as a cloud, and it sighed with a creak that was terribly loud. Christmas is coming, I gladly proclaimed, with decorations and lights, my joy unrestrained. But the old leather chair felt a little left out, for it needed a pillow. Of that, there's no doubt. Yeah, she needs a pillow. I adore Laura Penrose. I've been following her YouTube channel for years, but the Sweet Shop blanket is just so dang cute, and I have no motivation to make a blanket, like zero in me. Like, it's so cute and I like want to own it. I do not. I can't. I've never knit a blanket, confession time, nor have I crocheted one. I always give up. So when she came out with the Stella Quilt Cushion like months ago, I was like, yes, this is the way that I can get the feeling of the Sweet Shop blanket, but now have to make a full-on blanket. Not to mention the quilt motif is just so freaking cute. I need to make it. In this corner, I'm going for sort of a feminine hunting lodge sort of a vibe. And I feel like doing this quilt cushion in like a tweedy white and a dark brown would be perfect, especially the winter. Like, I think I'm going to leave this pillow up year round, but I do want to make it with an open back so you can switch out the different cushions inside in case I want to make another one in a different color palette for like summer. Or maybe someone else or her will come out with a like summery pillow pattern that I'll be really into. I haven't even looked into other pillow patterns, really. I'm so in love with this one. So maybe when I'm done with this one, I should look into other pillow patterns. But this one, oh, it's going to be so perfect for all of like autumn and winter especially. And it's going to look so cute over here. So I still have to swatch for the pattern. I haven't even purchased it yet, but I do have yarn that I think I'm going to use. I should say the pattern is designed to be for a DK weight yarn and a 4mm needle. I might need to adjust the pattern to make what I'm looking at here work. So 2 options. Number 1 is holding this double for the base color and holding this double for the contrast color. Option 2 is holding this single and holding this single. So I need to make some swatches because if I hold it double, that's going to be thicker than a DK weight. But if I hold it single, it's a little lighter than a DK weight. And it all depends on this tweedy yarn here. So the yarn I'm using is the, I need to read the label, Loops and Threads Luxe Merino Wool Blend, which is 50% superwash merino, 40% acrylic, and 10% tweed, which I thought would work for a household item such as a pillow that's not gonna get a whole lot of use. This chair doesn't get a ton of traffic from us. It's usually just when we have friends over that we're sitting in it. The concern I have about this yarn is that it might be a little too tweedy. I'm not sure about the density of tweed, and it's really hard to tell when it's just in a ball like this. Like, I have really no idea. So what I want to do is do a swatch with 3.75mm needles. That would be this yarn held single and this yarn held single. And this is Fisherman's Wool by Lion Brand because Wool Needles Hands has been talking about this yarn for a while now. She even made a sweater out of it. And it was really helpful, I think, to purchase this and feel it myself and realize, wow, I have really sensitive skin compared to most people, I think. In my head, I was like, maybe I don't. Maybe I'm just normal and, well, sorry, normal's not the right word. Maybe I'm just average. But after feeling this, I'm like, how could you ever wear a sweater made of this? Maybe, hi, baby. Maybe it gets softer when you work with it and block it. I don't know. So this is a good test on something I don't have to wear for me to use this yarn. Oh, and this is 100% wool, by the way. So I think that'll be the first swatch that I make is holding each of those single. And then the second swatch, if the first one doesn't quite work out and it's a little bit too tweedy, then I will hold these together on like a 4.5mm needle, maybe a 5mm. We'll have to see. Hi, you just are so desperate for attention. We've spent so much time together today. Was that not enough? This is the first time I think I've done a project video based on me following a pattern. Almost always it's me self-drafting. So that will be interesting to capture this process. But I've been doing a lot of garments this year, and I want to work on something else, and I want to work on this. The next step is to swatch, so you will hear from me when I have swatched. Later that very same day, I unfortunately have some decisions to make. I don't like making decisions. Here's where I'm at. Here's what I'm thinking. So what I've learned is unsurprising. I think it's just a little bit too busy if I have the speckled yarn. Like, it's just a little bit too speckled. I even tried pulling out a lot of the speckles by hand, and with me removing like half of them, it still looks a little too busy for my taste. And when I look at different project photos, the ones I like most are the ones with just a clean, non-speckled, non-variegated yarn. And if one is speckled, I like it if both the background and the contrast color are both speckled. So basically, we're gonna have to say no to this. The other issue is I can't just switch to the other loops and thread because, and I figured this might be an issue, the gauges of the yarn are a little bit too different. So this one works really well on a 3.5 millimeter needle. This one's a little bit too tight on a 3.5 millimeter needle, and I'd probably want to size up. So that leads me to having to make a new decision about yarn, and I just had this like, oh, bleep moment. Fun fact about me, I swear a decent bit, not a ton, but many times in a single conversation. So I try really hard to edit myself in conversation. Yeah, just had a like, I don't want to make a decision. I just wanted it to work out perfectly the first time. And I'm glad. And it's even written in the pattern, but basically with this project, like your gauge swatch is just doing the first square. So I really don't feel like I've lost anything, and I've kind of figured out the flow of how these squares come together. I like the pattern. I like the way it's written. It makes sense. She does have an accompanying video to explain some of it, like how you pick up for each square or connect the squares together, and that's pretty helpful. If you're like, I don't want to read and figure it out from words, I can just watch a video and see how it's done. So Bella, what are you gonna do now that the yarn that you picked out isn't gonna work? Well, lucky me dove into my stash, and I have some yarn that I think will work. I was kind of sad because the only other like whitish yarns that I have are bright white yarns, and I totally forgot that I had this on hand. So this is an abandoned stocking project that I was working on that I did not feel like finishing. And I'm kind of glad I didn't, because that's a story for another day. And I really like the color and how it looks with the brown. I think they go so well together, and they're the same gauge. This is Wool Ease that I had left over from when I crocheted my rug for the OGs that have been here since the beginning. We'll see if I end up starting on this again tonight, or maybe I'll just start on it tomorrow. Another decision I have to make. So basically I do have to size up a needle size, and I'm thinking maybe I'll size up to a 3.75. Like, I don't want to go too big. The pattern calls for a 4 millimeter needle, but I want my pillow to be a little bit smaller. I'm overthinking it. I can tell I'm overthinking it already. I can already tell though, this is gonna be the kind of pattern where I feel so motivated to do it, because it's just like one more square. I wanna switch to the next color. Because as I was working on this first square, I didn't know if I was entirely in love with it, so I switched to doing the next square and use the different color, because I'm like, maybe I just needed to see the two colors side by side, which really did help. But I was mostly just like, I want to switch colors and see how it works up. All right, I'm gonna go make dinner and listen to my audiobook, The Other Mothers, because we're about to find out who the killer is. Look at her. Isn't she beautiful? I'm feeling really proud about this. Last night I had a lot more motivation than I expected, and I ended up staying up way later than I expected and crushing it on these 4 squares. They are not perfect, and I had to unravel certain parts, but I'm feeling good about it so far. So basically, where's the start? I put an old nose ring on here to track which corner is the start corner. So the only like main issue that I have right now is this join here. It's a little bit skewed to the side, which I think I can fix. Like, it won't be noticeable when I go to do the stitches to put on the back panel, so you won't really see it. It's just something that is gonna bother me a tiny bit right now. And then the other thing that I was worried about was when I picked up stitches over here, it looked different than when I picked up stitches over here, but I looked at a ton of different project photos, and I think that that's just how it looks. And sometimes the joins will just look a little bit different. Oh, okay. Now that I'm looking at it, I think I fully understand it. Like it's a little bit raised on the right side and a little bit lower on the left, raised on the right. So you get that little line there, and lower on the left. And then here it was harder to see because, yeah, on these two it was harder to see because of the two different colors. So this is correct. This is correct. Okay, we're good. In conclusion, this is going well. And I have no idea how long it's going to take me to finish this or if my motivation will continue. Evening of day 2 of working on this project. So far, I have done 7 squares and watching Bob's Burgers Christmas episodes with Pippin chilling by my side. I am noticing some things that aren't quite perfect with the way I'm executing this. Like to me, this is not perfectly centered. But now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, I'm such a nitpicker. I think that's the hard thing about when you're knitting on something because you're looking at it so closely. And so you can see all the little mistakes. But when this is sitting on the chair as a pillow, I will not be looking at it this closely. I will mostly be looking at it from across the room 10 feet away. So if I can't see the mistake from 10 feet away, does it really matter? No. Ooh, in case you're new here, my name is Isabella. This is my YouTube channel. Obviously, you're watching my YouTube channel. And this pretty girl here be Pippin. Oh, this is also the part where I say like and subscribe because I'm cool like that. You're really getting the no makeup treatment, haven't slept in 2 days aesthetic in this video. I hope you enjoy. I have not progressed on this at all in the past day. It's day 4. We're on day 4. So day 3, I didn't do anything and was just lying in bed sick and on the couch and being grumpy. I'm grumps because I feel like I'm losing out on a whole weekend just being sick. And I'll probably still be sick when I start work, even though I have a lot to do. Wow, I'm pre-stressing. I should stop that. In conclusion,
I can't go out. I'm sick.
But hey, what's more in spirit with the holiday season than someone getting unexpectedly sick? I'm gonna work up some motivation to work on this, not because I feel like I need to get it done, but because I feel like I should do something with my day. Otherwise, I'm just gonna be crabby that I didn't do anything. Also, I think next time I check in with you, it'll likely be when I finish the entire front panel. So I will talk to you then, unless something goes horribly wrong with this. And I really hope that that isn't the case. So let's fingers crossed that in the next clip, I have fully finished the front panel successfully with minimal issue and I am no longer sick. The goals. I don't know if anyone's curious, but I did not make this cardigan. I bought this in college, so sorry. If anyone was like, ooh, cute cardigan. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they're like, wow, that's the ugliest cardigan I've ever seen. How dare she pop up on camera wearing something like that? I am still sick and I'm very annoyed about it. It's not like a, oh no, I'm dying, I can't get out of bed kind of sick. It's just a I don't like feeling physically uncomfortable and I haven't slept well in a week because it's really hard to fall asleep when your throat is feeling a little tight and your entire body is just like, oh my gosh, we're gonna suffocate and die. And you're like, no, we're not. Let me sleep. Back to the actual project that we're talking about. It's been 4 days and I did finish the front panel. Yay. I'm very excited about it. And as I was finishing it, in my mind, I was like, oh, the big finish line is finishing the front panel. And then as soon as I finished it, I was like, oh my gosh, no, we still have the entire back panel to do. So from an aesthetic standpoint, I was feeling really bad about myself as I was working on this because the square corners were not perfectly lined up. Not crisp, perfect little corners as if you were sewing. I think I mentioned this earlier, when working on any sort of knitting, I get way too in my head because I'm holding it this close to my face as I'm working on it and I see every little mistake. I know every little mistake. As soon as I'm done with a project and it's completed, I tend to be a little bit more gentler on myself. It's usually as I'm working on it that I'm the most self-scrutinizing. I think it'll also be good if I employ the 10-foot rule of no one's gonna be looking at it this close. People are going to be looking at it from, this is only 3 feet away from the camera, but you know what I mean. I do have one perfect corner though, so I think it's possible to achieve. I think I just wasn't paying close enough attention when there's a certain stitch you have to pick up, and I think I just kept missing that stitch or fudging it a little bit or making the tiniest little mistakes that just made it a little bit imperfect, but also it doesn't matter. I need to stop holding myself to the standard of perfection because that's not a healthy relationship to have with my knitting. Technical knitting things about this that I would recommend if anyone else is going to make this pattern. And maybe people, if you have made this pattern, because it's a somewhat popular pattern, this is probably not the first time you've seen someone talk about this. Maybe it is. I should stop assuming what you do and don't know. Let's talk about the ends, weaving in ends. There are lots of ends to weave in here. This is about 60% of the ends because I've woven in quite a few already. And you can tell there's a lot. It's just the nature of the pattern. It's okay. It's okay. It's not a big deal. I'll just put on a movie and weave in all the ends and we're all gonna survive, okay? But a recommendation I would make for people that want to do this is if you are weaving in the ends, I would wait until you have fully encapsulated that part of the pattern. So to briefly explain that, when you're working up the pattern, you knit one square at a time in succession. So I waited to weave in any ends until I had completed these 4 squares at the bottom and then these 2 squares at the top, because then that meant that this is fully encapsulated with the 4 squares around it. And I'm not going to be adding to this corner at all. So I felt comfortable at that point weaving in all the ends. The reason that I would wait is because sometimes I would have to redo a square or part of a square, and it just makes it so much more complicated to unravel and rework something up if you've already woven in the ends. It's just kind of annoying. So I would just wait personally. And something else for people to consider if you're debating making this pattern, this is done in garter stitch, so it's all knit stitches. You don't have to purl for this. I guess I haven't read the full pattern, but I'm pretty sure the back panel is also garter stitch and doesn't require any purling. So if you're the kind of person that just cannot stand purl stitches, then rest assured, you can just knit your way through this. I guess something else to mention is there are 4 different methods for making the squares based on which orientation the stitches are in, because some are flowing like up or right, some are going up or left. And then when you're working on it, some are, when you're like working on that square, some are attached just on one side, some are attached on 2 sides when you're working it up. So you need different methods based on all those reasonings. So there are 4 in total. Another good time to mention that people sometimes leave comments being like, for the love of everything good in this world, pet your cat. She gets plenty of love, I promise. I usually just cut it out of the video. Do you really want to watch me silently pet Pippin for 8 minutes straight? I promise these cats are very loved. Like I was saying, there's 4 different methods. After doing all of the methods at least once, they totally made sense, but you weren't doing them often enough in a row, or at least I wasn't, to memorize them, because sometimes with patterns where they have a repeating methodology, you can kind of pick up the rhythm of it and do it without a pattern. But I wasn't able to look up like, oh, for this square, you should be using method C. I wouldn't be able to automatically recall like, okay, what are all the steps for method C? I'd have to go back, reread quick. Okay, method C is this. And then I could do it without having to look at the pattern like every single row, which is nice. You could just do the square with only looking at it like once or twice, just to make sure that I'm doing everything correctly. My next steps with this pattern is to weave in the ends. Do you hear that? Weave in the ends, work on the back panel, and see if I have a ton of stuffing, and I think I already have a ton of pillow inserts, so I'll just see what I have and maybe something will already work, because I don't feel like buying another one. So unless something goes terribly wrong, I'll probably just talk to you when I'm done, and we'll gab about what happened. I don't like that word, gab. We'll talk. So we're gonna take our sweet time with this. I am working on this while I'm listening to an audiobook. It's Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers, and I'm listening to it as an audiobook. I am in love with this. It's such a good book. I'm so into it. I'm like halfway through it right now, and I cannot stop listening. It is so funny, and the title character is just the best. I love her. So I'm gonna listen to the audiobook and finish the pillow. I will talk to you when it gets done. I love doing the YouTube no-nos, like using the front camera on my phone to record.
I like breaking the rules. I wanted to give you an update before I finish this because I'm having a lot of thoughts right now, and let's talk about it. So I'm not done, but I'm going to show you because I'm not going to like gatekeep the results. Look at her. Look at how pretty she is. She's so cute. This is not the insert that I will be using. This is the pillow from my couch, but it helps me get the idea across. So that brings me to point number 1, which is if you're going to make this, you should definitely put the insert in it once you've attached the front and the back, or like once the front and the back are done. But do that before putting on the closure and really think about what closure type you want to do, because you can sew it shut and you can do the flap over the top, or like there's a couple other options that aren't in the pattern that I was debating. So one would be doing a zipper. I've decided not to do that on this one because I am still a little intimidated by combining zippers with knitting because too many bad experiences with zippers and sewing. So I decided to do the envelope closure, but after like putting it in here several times, I'm thinking that I don't want to rely on the envelope closure entirely because you're relying on like tension to keep it closed, and it's fine. It's a pillow insert. I'm not going to stuff loose feathers in here, so we're not going to have a big mess or anything, and this is the side of the pillow that wouldn't be shown. But it does make the volume of the pillow expand quite a bit, and I want the cover to be a little bit tighter. So I think what I'm going to do is make tiny little buttonholes on here and then sew buttons onto like the back flap so that I can button the closure in place and just have like 4 or 5 little buttons. What do we think? I'm thinking that's a good idea, and because it's my pillow, I get to do whatever I want. So I'm going to do the buttonholes right before I do the I-cord, because if I do the buttonholes too high up or too early on, then it just kind of looks weird because you'll have like a little bit flapping up the whole time. So I want it really close to the edge, like where the buttonholes are going to be. So that's my thought process. I'm thinking that's a good idea. I'm not picky about the buttons because they won't be showing, so I should just see what I have on hand. For anyone wondering how long this project takes, when I was working on the back panel over the weekend, I did 1/2 in one day, in like Saturday, and 1/2 on Sunday, but that was with me knitting like all day. It's the size of the body of a sweater. So, you know, it's not going to be the speediest thing in the world, which isn't the point, but I think it's helpful for people to know like about how long stuff takes. So I would estimate this to be maybe a 15 to 20 hour project, which is so highly dependent on how fast you knit, but that's my general guesstimation. This is Mary. She doesn't like being held. I don't know any cats that like being held. It's so unfair. Like, why are they so holdable if they don't like being held?
Oh, the lilac snow, drifting down so soft and slow outside my window. I watch it go. Oh, the lilac snow. And though the world may seem so still, it's coming in a distant chill with the memories of winters past, of the ones I wish would have lasted. Oh, the lilac snow tells secrets of long ago, of carol song, of gifts sweet known. Oh, the lilac snow whispers softly on the wind as memories come flowing in.
I did it. She's done, and she's beautiful, and she's not perfect, and that's okay. I want to make a second one of these, but I say that about every project I make, so don't hold your breath. But if I were to make a second one of these, I would like to do it in like a brighter color for like spring and summer, or multiple colors, you know, step out of my color comfort zone. But for fall and winter, this is exactly what I wanted, which is kind of a special thing in knitting, especially when you're starting out. I feel like a lot of projects don't quite turn out the way you want them to, and it took me a long time to get to the point where most of the projects that I output, I genuinely love, and if I saw it in a store, I would buy it. Definitely some things that need to be improved for next time.
and I will share those with you as a warning if you plan to make this. I know it's pretty popular, so like several people watching right now I know have already made this. And if you have made this, what would you do differently? Did you run into the same issues? Did you run into different issues? What did you think? For this, some things that I will mention. One is I needed to pay better attention when I was joining in the corners because some of them are a little bit misaligned. I know some of that is inevitable, so there's only so much you can do about it, but I just wanted to pay a little bit better of attention. I know when I reached a corner, I was like, oh, it's the corner. You're not, like, it's all going to be squished together, so you're not really going to see it, and I was a little bit wrong about that. The other thing I would do differently, and some of this stuff is actually written in the pattern, and I specifically chose to ignore it because I'm a dum-dum, but, you know, next time I will not ignore it. So I would switch to a lesser needle size for doing the backing. So on the front, I used a 3.75 millimeter needle, and I should have done like a 3.5 millimeter needle on the backing, if not a 3.25. On the I-cord bind off, sizing up quite a bit, so I ended up having to redo it because I did it with the same needle size and I thought I could just manually do it looser. I could not. So I sized up to a 4 millimeter, and I think I should have sized up to a 4.5 millimeter needle to do the I-cord because it could still afford to be a little bit looser. And then if you're doing the envelope closure, one thing I do like that I did is adding the buttons. I feel like that adds a level of security to it, and they look cute and you're not going to see them. And I already had them on hand, so that was really nice that I had buttons that like perfectly matched the color and vibe of the whole pillow. I think I would also debate going with a zipper. Yeah, looking at it now, I can tell. You can tell the I-cord is too tight, and I didn't add enough stitches on the side. Like I didn't make the envelope flap portion big enough, so it kind of pulls in tight on the edges here, which is totally fine because when it's like from the front, you can't tell that much unless you know. And even then, I don't really care. I don't have a lot of people that come over to my apartment. Something I did not realize that I can't really show you is this off-white yarn that I used. I had 3 partially used balls of this yarn, and I did not realize that they were not all the same color. They're slightly different. And so I can kind of tell looking at this, but I have to really focus to see which squares are slightly different colors, like the off-white. But when I went to block it, the difference was insane. When it's wet, you can really tell. Like when it was wet, there was a harsh, because I had to switch halfway through this back panel, there was a harsh diagonal line and the 2 halves, like entirely different colors. So it's hilarious to me how much that does not show when it's dry. Definitely a note for myself is like pay better attention next time maybe. And then just good interior design advice in general in case you have not come across this advice before in your life. Size up when you go to buy an insert, or if you like have an insert, size down the pillow to accommodate that. I always size up my pillow inserts by like 1 or 2 sizes. So if this pillow cover is about 18 by 18 inches flat, and so the insert, this isn't the final insert that I'm going to use. I'm still just borrowing the insert from my couch pillow, but I'm gonna buy like a 20 by 20 or 22 by 22 inch insert to like make it extra fluffy and puffy. Now I need to brainstorm and I need ideas for what to do with the yarn left over from this, because I luckily don't have a lot of the white yarn left over, just a couple grams, so I'm just gonna set that aside for a scrappy project someday. But I have so much of this, like, what is it, Lion Brand's fisherman wool left over. I don't know what to do with this. I'm not going to wear this. It's way too scratchy for that. But I'm thinking it's feltable. So maybe a felting project or like a little basket or some sort of household good or item. I'm comfortable knitting or crocheting, so something. But I need project ideas for, maybe I should do a video and really brainstorm on that. Like what to do with yarn you don't want to wear. And then, okay, this needs to be rebound. Just a note, if you end up buying the Loops and Threads Luxe Merino Wool Blend yarn, which I bought as an experimentation for this, but just know this ball unravels itself immediately. I didn't even use this for, like, I just made a swatch with this. I wasn't aggressive with it, and it's like throwing itself up. It's prolapsing. I need to come up with a plan for this and this, because if you can remember at the beginning, my initial plan was to use these as the contrast color, no, the base color, but I ended up not doing that, so I just have these now. And then I also have this because I was going to use this as the contrast color, but I ended up wanting to have like a darker color as the contrast. So here we are. I have a lot of yarn to figure out what to do with. So, you know, let me know if you have any ideas. Mary's unhappy with her current predicament. She wouldn't like to make a comment at this time. Oh, and you should subscribe because I'm having a lot of videos come out over the course of December, and they're all like totally different and fun. So I have a lot of knitting and crochet and Christmassy stuff, and it's all very crafty, and it's all very awesome, and it's all very chill and similar to this. Unless you didn't like this, in which case it's very different. It's not the same at all.